Point of view determines everything. That's a saying of my own that I've come up with through the years. I've wrote about it in some of my writings. I've recorded it on some other stuff. But today, I'm going to do the presentation that I was going to do at Illinois some time back, but it didn't get to take place. And the reason that I felt that I should do this is because of the experiences in this lifetime that I've had with Lauren, Michelle, and Jonathan Ray. It's a rare experience to see and live and know of the investment, I would call it, that Angie and I had put into our children and our family in our 40 years together we've done so far and counting. But let me go back to where I said point of view determines everything. When Angie was carrying our children, I would talk to them in the womb. I would say, hey, I'm your daddy, I'm waiting for you. And they would respond. They would kick and thump, and they could hear my voice because they already knew Angie's voice. They had already had that mother-child connection that, nothing can replicate, literally, in that sense. I can only presume to imagine it or know, but there's nothing in nature that can outdo or, just for lack of better description, meet that level of connection and with good moms, that have with their children. A natural connection, because that's the way Creator had made it. But back to the interaction in the womb. I talked to Jonathan. I didn't know he was a boy, but I would put my hand on her belly and I would say, hey, little child of ours, what's going on in there? And he'd be hearing me and react, kick, thump, and move. And it's a miracle of life, a gift of life from Creator, a child that is born. But if you step back and look in the larger picture of everything that I'm about to share with you, you'll see what I mean when I finally wrap it up at the end. I talked with them, we interacted, and once they were born, I was there with Angie. And I saw the nature of their births. And when they became older, I shared with them the stories of the days of their birth. Particular things that I observed, because their mother could tell them her own things. But I was giving them a father's perspective, a daddy's perspective. And that was a good thing. Because in the ways of the indigenous peoples, that was where the root of the family would begin. The mothers and fathers would come together, they would have their children, and during the winters, for instance, the Plains tribes, during the winter seasons, the grandparents would be involved as well, passing down tradition, teaching them how to survive in this world of Creator, to hunt, to feed, to clothe, just basic survival skills, and how to interact with one another, how to do things outside of self, because back then, before Columbus came, most of the tribes for generations had done everything in the oral tradition. They passed it from mouth to ear with each generation, showing them by living example of how to live their lives, their human lives, while they were here on earth. And that was the good thing, because over time these things were meant to change, obviously, because we're here in the year 2023, and there's not much time that's passed from the times of when the Indian Removal Act was signed and this country was founded and being built, and everything went westward, affecting the indigenous peoples here and abroad. Because it wasn't just here in the United States, it was up in Canada, it was down there in Central America, down there in South America. It was a whole another massive continents that the Europeans and the others, they had no idea was out here. They thought they were going to India. But that's going off track there. I felt my children. I saw them born. And as Jonathan was born, I would put him on my chest and rock him to sleep, hum tunes to him, tell him how much I loved him. And I would just feed him, because children are sent to teach us. Children are gifts of life from Creator that are sent to teach us of things that they already know and had left behind in the spirit world, because in those ages they're still closest to where they had just come from. But like I said, touched them in the womb, talked to them through the womb, was there at birth. They began to crawl around, roll around, crawl on their knees, start walking. Their physical life, you would watch them grow and progress, but all along, Angie and I was nurturing them, teaching them, loving them, having fun with them. The feelings and emotions, the things of unseen. There was always a lot of laughter, a lot of growing pains as well when they became teenagers. And that goes into my next step. In our human forms, going out of childhood into adolescence / puberty, and then into young adulthood, that period of time right there is where all of us as humans encounter the following questions in their minds and hearts. Why am I here? What is my purpose? They're doing, in essence, a vision quest. The indigenous peoples back then, they would send the young boys out with just their prayers, and for 3 days and 3 nights, no food, no water, and they were seeking a vision. And the vision that they were asking for was, where is this life going that you've given to me, Creator? What am I supposed to be doing while I'm here on this planet? What is my purpose in this life that you've got, the journey, as they called it. And like I said, amongst the 4 colors of the dust of the earth, children, we all go through that adolescent period through puberty. We're attempting to define ourselves. We have reacted to the peers that are around us, the pressures, the influences, attitudes, behaviors, characteristics. As a child, children are literally sponges in that regard. But back to Jonathan and Lauren and Sarah and Hillary, our children. We fed them with our love. We hugged them. We give them our love. We showed them our love. We traveled everywhere doing things together in love. And my original start of this video is point of view determines everything. As Jonathan grew, I did things with him. Angie had done things with him. We did things as a family, but we were rooted together. We became a bundle. And we endured everything that had come along as they were continuing to grow. And we, as parents, Angie and I, had continued to grow raising them. We did everything together, the life part. But in all of this, the positive energy that flowed was the love that we have for one another and still continue to have. Because there's one out there currently that will say, boohoo around and whatnot, but she's still our daughter. We still love her, but we also know what she's been capable of because she showed it to us along the way. We know her. We've known her all her life. But that's the thing. In the puberty stage, adolescence, our children are subject to whatever is out there in school, in church, in modern life. And they interact with others, and then they start defining themselves. However, my theory is that if you root the family together from the womb through their childhood into adolescence, and it's nurtured in love and the common good, as they would call it, maybe, is that once the child enters puberty, which is the most torrential, the most challenging, the most part of this human life that we have of defining oneself and finding purpose, the vision quest, as I called it, if they're properly rooted and founded in the family unit, then once they get into that age, chances are what you planted as a parent, as a guardian, as something, that's what's going to help them get through it, because I got to see this personally and experience it with Lauren and Jonathan, the two children whose videos I put out earlier on TikTok of their death experiences and what I had seen. So now back to this part. They were rooted, and they were nurtured in love. They knew their father, they knew their mother, they knew us both, they knew their siblings. You know, we did everything together. The foundation of every society begins with the family. And what I mean family is usually two partners, significant others, because this is a modern day and age. It's not, you know, necessarily a man and a woman, as a lot of them are portraying it, because Creator has sent all. And that's another thing I'll go in, you know, on something later, or I'll answer questions about later, because everyone has their own point of view, their own life to lead, and you got to be able to take care of your own yard first before you start looking at others, because it's wrote in Scripture, and that's just common sense. But back to Jonathan and Lauren and their experience, what I got to experience with their deaths is that Lauren was 31 when she passed away, Father's Day 2020. Jonathan was 36 years old when he passed away shortly, I mean right there before Mother's Day, May 6, 2021. And Lauren's death was so unexpected, and Jonathan's, but let's start with Lauren first. At her funeral, her co-workers, the people that she had affected and helped in her lifetime, they showed up at her funeral. They told us, your daughter Lauren was so helpful in this regard. She did this, she did that. She helped me through my trouble. Lauren had given so much of herself to help others around her and those that she encountered that she basically left nothing for herself. She did suffer in depression, but she was getting seen for it. But like any human being, the rest of us, is that she had her own internal battles, her own internal struggles to deal with. But she got beyond herself, and she was still able to help others. Because when her funeral date came and her little amen corner was lined up there, and I noted them and thanked them at the funeral, because they shared with us the effects of Lauren, the effects of the love and the caring and the compassion, the empathy, everything that Angie and I had showed to them from the womb until they had died was reflected back in those that showed up. The same way with Jonathan. When he died, his online gaming family, he broadcast on Twitch, and he was known as Chief Little Paw. But after he died, his online gaming community that him and Lauren were involved in, they pulled together inside of 36 hours, and these were people that he had not ever physically met in person, face to face. But with modern technology, and this is where the point of view comes in, I thought that such things were a waste of time, truly, because I'm out here working and I hear about their tales of what they're doing and stuff. I'd come home, Jonathan would be up through the night, you know, doing his Twitch broadcast, and I loved hearing him play his games and stuff. I loved him. I was his first opponent, but I wasn't open to what they presented back then, because I was too focused on making the living, and I was too set in my ways maybe. But Jonathan and Lauren showed me how their point of view affected, and it came back and reflected back and taught me. So yes, it isn't a waste of time, whatever your children and grandchildren are doing. Get on their wavelength. Get on their frequency, whatever you want to associate it to. If they're tugging your shirt, give them that second or two. Give them that minute or two. Because the quality of the time that you give your children and your grandchildren will pay off in the long run, because they remember those moments, those times when they say, yeah, Dad listened to me, Grandma heard me, Papa, did this with me. Later in life, it's always going to come back to them. And they knew that someone took a moment and heard them. Because in this modern day and age, children are shuffled off to school. under someone's tutelage for the most of the day. They'd come home and everyone's doing their own separate thing. They're no longer like a true family unit. Or they shuttle them off to church, pastors, thumping them over the heads with the Bibles and saying, you're this, you're that, you're that. But they don't, it's someone else steering the influence on the children, on the grandchildren. Get back to the basics of roots. Get back to the basics of building your family, becoming like a bundle of twigs. The teachings of the indigenous folk is a stick, one by one can be broken. But when you put them all together as a bundle and wrap them in love, tighten it up in whatever the strongest energy positive you've got, then they are unbreakable as a group. Unbreakable. Try that yourself sometime. Just get one stick, break it in half, then get a bundle of them, tie it up with something good and tight, and see if you can break the same thing. That's what I'm getting at when I talk about family unions. The root of every society begins with the family. The two significance, raising the children teaching their significance above them. So, hey, we're here, we were sent. They may not grab you by the shirt or tug you on the apron or whatever and say, this is what I come to taught you. No, because this is a human path. This is the human soul. But back to Lauren and Jonathan. I realized through their deaths and with those people that came forth, I said, your daughter, your son, they helped us with this. They helped us with that. This is how much they meant to us, and we're returning it to you. That love, everything that we fed into them came back at their funerals. Came back and showed us that the investment that we had given them from the womb, through their childhood, through their adolescence, and into their adult life, it was reflected back, and it hits full force. So what I'm speaking of is true. I have lived it. I have experienced it, and I will honor and cherish it for the rest of this life and beyond. And that's why I put this video together today, to show you, to tell you that is possible. Our futures are in our children and grandchildren. Wrap them up in love, nurture them, grab them, get on their wavelength for however long it takes. If it's just a minute or two, so be it. Because that minute or two beats no time at all. Because that no time at all that you missed out, somebody else is feeding them. And we see it all too often nowadays of what that produces. But I have lived it with Lauren and Jonathan. We loved them, we nurtured them, and their work came back and manifested it at the times of their deaths and in their funerals, because those people that they affected, those people that they helped in the best possible ways, they gave more of themselves to others than they kept for themselves. So yeah, they did it the right way, and they made us proud as parents. So, point of view determines everything. Feed your family, tend to your family. Your children and your grandchildren are gifts of life from Creator. Make the best investment in your future and in the future of society as a whole. Because if you've got one family doing this, and it goes off to another family, it's like a ripple effect. The rock dropped into the pond. It can change the outcomes on the earth plane. But everyone's got to say, hey, look at the bigger picture. Hear what this individual had said and lived. Because that's why I brought this to you today. So you all take care of one another, and thank you for taking the time to listen and follow.